Hello, I want to make a clip about Gorbachev, and the issue with him is not that he's dead. I'm really glad he's dead, but what is the most important part to me is that he is portrayed quite positively, and I honestly don't understand why. So the first item we should take, it was described, at least in many eulogies, like he was a nice person, just a person to that he combined some reforms and so on. But if you look even on the Wikipedia page and something like that, he was self-describing by far, like for example, that he was a Marxist-Leninist, so he was not a reformer in the sense, and social democracy, but by early 1990s. This one he was out of the power. So, but it's easy to talk without giving context. So there are some describings of how the society was. So we can see if he was, let's say, let's compare today with Putin, and to see if the society was more free. And as much I think Putin is a horrible person, and everyone I think agrees with it. I think, for example, this series Chernobyl, which was very popular, it's made by HBO, it describes very accurately the historical environment and the society there. And when you watch it, you can think yourself if that society was a free one, and if it was or it wasn't. I'll let you decide after you watch the series. If you didn't see it, you can discuss later if you think it was a reformist. And you could see how reformist was when you think that he was supposedly giving freedom and self-determination or something like that, which I heard this kind of nonsense. As a native Romanian, I know that Moldova was enriched with some tanks. Transnistria was always put like a separate, with no pretext, taken from Romania, and it was not given to Ukraine either. So, and it's not admitted ever. But let's say with or without Transnistria, the way it was taken or something like that, it was really with tanks and other parts of it. And this was not happening only in Moldova. It was happening with very known in Lithuania. Lithuania was the first state, and on peaceful protests, tanks were enriching like a freedom values, the same like in Czechoslovakia or Prague or Budapest. It was the same way enriched, and again, it was on the time of Gorbachev. But the reason why the Soviet failed, in my understanding, it was simply because Afghanistan, and not the war of US, but the Soviet-Afghan war. It was a war that killed 2 million people, and or at least half a million, and they bombed everything. So, and even though US helped, which we can see, that was the most important part that eventually I think it dropped the state of Russia or USSR like a superpower. It was not an issue of communist values. It was simply that a genocidal state would bomb and kill indiscriminately. And this was stating the power. And eventually, the reason why Afghanistan survived, it was simply that it was little by little helped maybe in a proxy war, but it was making Russia very poor at the end. and Russia considered defeat economically, and this was it. And I'm honestly curious why the people think Gorbachev was good. And as a state, for people who are not knowing me personally, I was born in Romania, and if you go to Romania, I will use uh, this maps Google. I'm living in Vilnius now, very close to this vassal state, Belarus. But I was here born, and I was always under the pressure that Russian tanks would enrich us culturally, like they enrich right now Ukraine. I can't imagine, in short, a world where at least Russia was a decent state in the last 100 years. And given that, I don't know what Gorbachev did to give this state to lose a war and saying it can't sustain many more wars like Lithuania getting independence or Latvia or Estonia. This is not giving, admitting or accepting new values. It is simply that you can't sustain your terror campaign. Okay, so I'm glad that Gorbachev doesn't enrich us, and I would say that Gorbachev would be a good person if at least will apologize, if it would be an outspoken critic of Putin before, not only before that, but in the last 6 months. And as far as I know, he didn't do it because he was and he's an imposter. Okay, good death, and thank you for listening. Bye bye.